On this episode of Delivering Marketing Joy, we talk with best-selling author Jeff Haden about his tips for success on achieving your goals and why following your passion might not work. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and I'm super excited to have a return guest with me. My man, Jeff Haden, is back. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, those of you who don't know Jeff, and you should, Jeff's a ghostwriter. He's written over 50 books, nonfiction books, I should say, including several bestsellers. In addition, in 2014, I love these stats I read online. Jeff's Inc.com posts were read by over 25 million people, and his LinkedIn posts were over 20 million. He's a rock star, so thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, and
you and my mother.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we talk a lot. So one of the things that you and I have talked about a little bit in the past, and I wanted to dig in a little more, was about goals and achieving goals. And you write a lot about that, about achieving success and goals. And so I thought maybe you could help give us some tips or suggestions for people on how to be successful in reaching goals.
The biggest reason that I write about goals a lot is because I think that's a universal. I'm struggling for the right word, but that's a universal theme. We all have things we want to do. We all have things we want to achieve. We all tend not to achieve everything that we would like to achieve. Right. So I tend to approach it more from a point of view of, okay, this didn't work for me, but I finally found something that did. And so my biggest, if I can only give you one thing that I think matters most when you're trying to achieve a goal, it's that you have to set the goal and then almost forget the goal, which I know sounds kind of zen.
Okay.
So work with me for a second. Let's say that you decide you want to run a marathon. And you are not a runner, and the best you can do right at this moment is, maybe a mile, kind of easing your way along. And you decide you want to run a marathon. That's great. Okay. So you go out tomorrow, go for a run, you make it a mile, maybe a mile and a half, and you come back home and you compare that to the 26 point whatever miles, and you think, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get there? Right. So that constant comparison of here to here is defeating, and it's demotivating, and it tends to drive people away from what they're trying to do. So the key to me is, and I'm not the only person that has said this, right. Set your goal, then create a process that's going to get you to your goal. So say your process for next week is you're going to run 4 times, and you're going to do a mile and a half, and you're going to do it in, we'll pick a number, 15 minutes. Okay, that's your process. Right. So if you do that, each time you do it, you get to feel good about yourself because you actually achieved what you set out to do. You're not thinking of the 26, you're thinking about the mile and a half. So then when you ratchet it up a little bit, you do the same thing. And the cool thing is all of those little moments along the way where you achieve something, those feel good. Yeah. That's neat. You are comparing yourself to what you hope to do. And then within a month or so, if you're up to running, let's say 3 or 4 miles, now you can look back and say, wow.
Look how far I've come.
Compared to then, I'm getting somewhere. And you just keep working the process. And if you work the process and you have a process that is designed to get you where you want to go, and you're willing to adapt a little bit along the way from what you learn, then you have a much better shot at getting there because you're not constantly comparing yourself to where you want to be or to other people who have done that. So it's all about, it's you and it's what you decide to do, and you just work your process.
Yeah, and I don't know about you. I have run a marathon, and it's funny how that is absolutely true. You set the goal, and then you're right, you forget it because you get somebody, and if you're like me, I looked at a plan, I'm like, well, I've never done it, so I'm going to look at a plan, and whatever it tells me to do, I'm going to do that.
Right.
Because they know and I don't. And I think it's interesting. I don't necessarily always look at business that way, though, which maybe I should.
Well, that's what we tend to do because you look and you might say, okay, I want to net or I want to gross $150,000 a month in sales. All right, and if you're only doing 10, that's a pretty big number.
Right.
And it may be that you want to get there, But you've got to figure out a process that's going to get at you there. Like with what you do, helping people with marketing,
Right.
if they're hoping to reach some kind of sales goal, I'm sure you eventually sit down and say, okay, cool. Here's what you need to do.
Right.
Here's the steps along the way. And you have to hit each one of these or you're never going to get to there. So, but it is odd because we end up just finding things that we do every day, and it's what we do. And we do the same thing all the time, and then we look around and say, "Why is this not different?"
Yeah, that's great.
Why have I not gotten anywhere better?
Yeah.
So you have to come up with something new, and you have to have a new process. But I think that's why we don't do it in business, because we get lazy and we get complacent, and we decide that what we're doing is the best way we can do it, and it's other people's fault. Like we haven't gotten to where we want to be.
No, that's a great point. Now, you talked about setting the goal and then forgetting the goal. Now, I'm curious to get your opinion. Now, when you set goals, are you a big, hairy, audacious goal guy? Are you a smart or an achievable goal guy? Or are you a smart goal guy? Do you have, or none of those things? How do you set?
I am all of those things at different times.
Okay.
But I think what's more important than any of those is that whatever goal you set has to have some personal meaning to you. So if you had some reason you wanted to run that marathon, don't know what it is, don't even want to hear it, but you had some reason, and clearly it meant something to you,
Right.
or you would never have gotten there.
Right.
So if you pick some goal, no matter how big and hairy and audacious it is, but if it doesn't mean anything to you, then when you hit little roadblocks and you hit little barriers, you're going to give up because you don't truly care. My favorite analogy is I'm a terrible swimmer.
Okay.
And I have two daughters who both swam in college. And so we go and they want to swim and I hate it. And, at some point one of them will say, "Dad, just pretend a shark is after you." And it's true. If a shark was after me, I could get to the end of the pool much faster than I normally do.
Right.
Because then it would mean something to me. And so that's, I think, the biggest trick with a goal. You have to pick something that means something to you, and sometimes it's just finding the meaning in it. So, if it's a business goal, and we go back to my $150,000 a month in revenue, maybe what you do is, because that's just a number,
right.
And maybe that means it's a Lamborghini in the driveway or something. But if you look at it maybe differently and say, you know what, but I really want to set this up so that I can do this for my kids,
right.
Or I want to do this for my family, or I want to do whatever. And if you almost picture you not achieving it and not being able to do things you want to do, then all of a sudden it creates a different sense of meaning. So I think the trick is whatever your goal is, it has to mean something to you, or you will never achieve it.
It's that why.
It's absolutely the why.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can manufacture a why. The Michael Jordan stories where, best basketball player of his era.
Yeah.
But any time any other player said anything that it was even slightly negative about him, he would latch onto that.
Yeah.
And that would give him his meaning.
Yeah.
And, because he was going to show them. So you can manufacture meaning.
Yeah.
But it does need to have meaning, or else you're going to quit.
Yeah.
And I've quit so many times on so many things that I can speak to that one.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Stuff that means something, you will do.
Yeah. No, that's cool. All right. So my final question to you, and this one's close to home for me. So I've been really honored. I'm being asked to give a commencement speech at my high school.
Oh.
Yeah, right?
Oh.
Yeah, it's a big honor and a little intimidating. Yeah, right? And it seems like every speaker you always hear, follow your passion, follow your dreams. Do you buy that? And if not, what should I tell them?
I don't.
Yeah.
Actually. When I was in high school, I didn't have a passion. So I don't know what passion I was going to follow.
Right.
A pro athlete? Okay. But I wasn't going to be one.
Yeah.
So there's a cool book by a guy named Cal Newport. It's called So Good They Can't Ignore You. And one year in the past, it was one of every year I do this thing on Inc. where I have like my top 10 business books of the year, and it was one of them. His premise, and I actually agree with it, is passion comes from mastery and expertise. So work with me for a second. So let's say that I don't know, a good example is long ago when I worked for a company, I was in a job and I needed to learn C++, the programming language. Didn't want to learn it, didn't have any interest in it, hated the idea of it, needed to learn some. So I sat down, playing along, and I finally wrote this program that would generate a random password.
Okay.
I don't know why I chose that. Doesn't matter. It was kind of fun when it worked.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So there was that little feedback loop, which I think I talked about before.
Right.
So then that made me think, well, I wonder if I could make it do this. And then that worked. And it was like, oh, that's kind of cool too. And so as I started to build some skill, it made me feel better about myself. It was a fulfilling and gratifying kind of thing. And I actually got to this point where I enjoyed doing it because I was good at it.
Right.
And I wanted to be even better. Now, eventually I gave that up because that's how life works.
Yeah.
But that's kind of his point. If you pick something, if you're doing something and you say to yourself, let's say you don't know how to do it, not any good at it, fight your way through that initial period where when you really suck at something and you think, I'm not doing this anymore, fight past that and keep going for a little bit. Have a success that feels kind of good. Then you'll want to do some more and some more and some more. And so my advice to high school kids, not that they would listen to me, but my advice would be whatever job you get, it probably will not be the job you have the rest of your life. It probably will not be in an industry you're in the rest of your life. But you can learn something from every job you're in, no matter how theoretically menial or boring or mundane. Go in and say, you know what? I don't want to do this forever, but while I'm there, I'm going to be really good at it. And I'm going to work to be good at it. And you never know what stuff you'll pick up. I worked in manufacturing for 20 years and had no interest in that before I started. Started at the very bottom level, hated it for about a month, then realized that, hey, wow, I can do this. I can try that. I can try whatever. And did it for 20 years. And it was awesome. And I learned all kinds of stuff about process improvement and quality, and all kinds of things came from that. But it was, I want to get good at this. So that, I think, is the key. And I think that's where you get it backwards, because if you think, wow, I don't enjoy this, it's not my passion, so I'm not going to try. Well, then where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You know, what do you do with that? So not that they would listen, but my advice would be, whatever you get into, see it as something that will build this foundation of skills that you will get to. And you never know what you're going to like. Because if you could ask them at the time, how many of you have a passion that relates to earning a living? How many are going to raise their hands?
I wouldn't have.
You know, there's tons of passions that are passions, but that you can't earn a living that way.
Right.
So go out and try to be really good. And don't look at a job that, you know, well, wow, I don't want to do that. You know, that's not me. Well, anything can be you if you try hard and want it to be good. So that would be my thing, is that passion comes from skill and from mastery and from feeling good about the fact that you learned how to do something.
That's great stuff.
I don't know. What are you going to say?
I've got notes, so I'm still working through it. But I think I'm recording this, so I think maybe I'll just use what you just said. Yeah,
but you'll never be able to use my actual voice because my nasal country twang will probably not go over with your audience.
No, that's good stuff.
I'd be a good country singer if I could carry a tune.
Well, thanks again. I've given you.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
So if we go back to your first point about achieving goals, since you work with people and you help them with marketing and with trying to grow their businesses, when you walk into the average client, do they have goals? Is the process of setting one kind of painful? I mean, I think that at times you will probably walk in and they're like, we need to do better, but they can't even quantify that. So how do you kind of start that to help people get to that place where they have a measurable, meaningful goal? And then you can figure out how to actually help them get there.
Yeah, your point is 100% right. I feel like you've been in a couple meetings with me.
It's another place I've failed.
Yeah, the clients that I think we do the best with are the ones who do have a vision. And so when they have a vision, it's what's the famous quote from not the Wizard of Oz, but Alice in Wonderland. And he said, "Where do you want to go?" Well, I don't know. Well, then any road will take you there. So the best clients and the clients that we have the most success with are ones that say, look, we want to work with you, and here's what we need help with. it is remarkable to me how many clients we work with who say, yeah, we just want to increase sales. Well, who are you? You know, it's like when you have to really dig to say, well, who are your customers?
Right.
Well, everybody's my customer. No.
Right.
And so, you're right. I think some clients, when you walk in and they're like, hey, yeah, this is what we do best. Here's the demo that we really resonate with. And here's what we want to accomplish. We want to get new hires. We want to increase sales. We want to do this. We want to do that. That's where I think that just about any good marketing firm can help you get there once they know the thing. The challenge is getting them to share that with you. And I think part of the deal with that is trust.
Right.
And one of the things I've found is people don't always want to share their goals with you because they're afraid they're going to fail. And that's a shame, right? Because I think that a lot of people along the path want to help you.
Right.
But you got to be willing to let them in, if that makes any sense.
That is a perfect point, because I get people that email me all the time saying, you got a pretty big audience. How do I get my audience to be bigger? And I always, when I answer, but don't answer them all. But when I answer, I'm like, well, okay, but what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
Do you just want numbers, or what are you trying to?
Yeah. What
is the purpose for it? What's your audience? Who's your sweet spot? And usually they're just like, well, I just want more views. And I'm like, well, it's like you, and not everybody is your customer. And even if the whole world is your customer, there are still ideal customers.
Yeah. And
so you should know who those are.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
So it's a tricky little place. You have a difficult job.
Well,
I just get to write stuff and send it out in the world.
Well, Jeff, man, I really appreciate you being a part of the show once again. You always do a great job. And, man, who knows? Maybe we'll do this again sometime.
I would be glad to.
All right. Thanks. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Hey, thanks for watching, but wait! Can you do me a favor? Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it already. The way to do it's right over here. And hey, if you want to watch the last episode, check that out over here. Again, before you leave, subscribe!